I am so excited to be here for Screen Actors Guild Foundation and such an incredible actress, performer, artist. She's an artist and an actress of firsts. The first black actress to have her own television series on NBC. You saw the clip, it was Julia, and most recently it was on TV Land. She was the first black actress to replace a white actress on Broadway, in Agnes of God, replacing Elizabeth Ashley. And the first black actress to star on a nighttime soap, Dynasty, as Dominique Devereaux. An Academy Award nomination for Claudine, Grammy nominations, Emmy nominations. She won a Tony Award for No Strings and was recently one of the legends on Oprah's Legend Show. Did you see that fantastic television show? So we have a legend in the house. Put your hands together. A big SAG welcome for Diahann Carroll. Yeah.
What a lovely introduction. Thank you. How nice. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, Diahann, I just mentioned you were one of the legends on Oprah's Legend Special. Everybody on the show got phenomenal earrings. Did you see the show? Now, I'm very concerned about you because, see, if you wear those earrings and you go out,
yes,
you might bump into Patti LaBelle. Same earrings. Dionne Warwick, same earrings.
That doesn't bother me.
Halle Berry, I was concerned, so we had, you know.
brought new earrings?
We didn't go to Van Cleef and Arpels.
Right.
We went to the swap meet in Reseda. Diahann Carroll, these are your new earrings. Yes.
They're fabulous. These are more Dominique Devereaux, actually.
Yes.
This is
All I can say is eat your heart out, Oprah. Really.
Isn't that wonderful? Thank God, thoughtful.
Absolutely.
Oh,
you never know when you're going to run to the store and need a little something to put on.
Just to attract a little
Exactly.
attention in the store.
Speaking of
Thank
that
you.
show, that event, that whole weekend.
Yes.
How extraordinary was it?
Well, you know, I wasn't there. Now,
You weren't there?
No, I was there for the luncheon.
Uh-huh.
I left the same day because I received my doctorate from Spelman College the following morning.
Wow.
And after we all had a little chat, everyone understood which was really terribly important, and that was the doctorate. Oprah was kind enough to offer her plane, but we couldn't work it out. But I was only there for maybe 3 or 4 hours one afternoon. I have not seen it, but I understand it's a lovely show. And most
It's
of the
unbelievable,
things that
yeah.
Oprah does, she does wonderful things.
Does she lend her plane out often, or in case I need to get somewhere, I just wanted to know whether there's possibilities.
Knowing Oprah, she probably rents it.
How was it, though, at the luncheon to just be with the other fabulous ladies and talk and converse and reminisce?
It was a wonderful idea. I think it was something that I've never seen before in my life. I've never participated in an afternoon that allowed all of us to say hello. And I didn't know that some of the youngsters were going to perform. I thought we were all there to just relax and enjoy ourselves. But it was lovely that you put together a show for us. And I think most of the older folk, like myself, we really didn't have to participate in a way that would allow us not to have a glass of wine. You know what I mean? So
Just one
just
little glass.
one glass.
One glass, yeah.
Bet you can't eat one.
But I saw the show, and all the waiters and waitresses, each one of you had your own personal waiter waitress, and they served at exactly the same time.
Yes.
Which is lovely.
It's lovely. It's a very old European way of dining when you're quite grand or royalty or whatever. And it was lovely that if that's the way she wanted to treat us, I was delighted to be the recipient of that kind of. It was absolutely glorious.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, when you were just watching your clip and you heard some of the applause, it's always interesting when people watch their own work in sort of a retrospect. What was going on in your mind as you were watching?
Well, the first thing that honestly occurred to me is that I must be very, very tired. For a body of work, this is several bodies of work. But I love what I do. And some of it actually made me cry because I look at the youngster and I'm not certain that I, to this day, have a way to relate to her. It was really a very long time ago. But I do relate to the fact that she was always fighting. There was always pain involved in that. It looks lovely. It looks glamorous and wonderful and lovely. It was very hard. It's very hard being a young female, being a black female that was not of a cookie cutter. Mm-hmm. I really could not be placed in any particular. I love Broadway. I love theater. I didn't know too much about any other kind of music, and that's the way my mother wanted it. And whatever Mabel wants, Mabel got.
And that's Mama.
That's Mom.
Mama was a nurse.
My mother was a nurse.
And Dad was a
he worked,
conductor.
That's right, on the transit system in New York City. But my mother, more importantly, was one of the most supportive mothers I've ever known, without being intrusive. Wherever I chose to study, or if I found someone that I felt could support me in some way with information that I needed, she was always there. She was there with her heart, her soul, and her purse. Mm-hmm. So I will always, my father sort of left that up to my mother, and I will always be greatly indebted to my mother, who said wonderful things to me, like, you know, if you really wanted, Diahann, I believe that you could be the President of the United States. I think if
and you still could.
Thank you.
If Hillary decides not to,
well,
you have a chance.
I think if my mother was around now, she would not be so anxious for me to be President of the United States. We have seen a very strange example of a President of the United States.
Yes. So. Diahann, your birth name, Carroll Diahann Johnson.
And spelled Diahann.
So you didn't change the spelling?
No.
No. So I know, because my real name is Bernie Feldman.
Right.
There, I've said it. So
is that difficult for you to say?
It is. Paul is my middle name, so it's not just completely made up.
Right.
So your Diahann is in the middle as well.
Yes.
But when someone along the way, there are relatives who still want to call and say, Bernie, how are you?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and let them.
Yes, and then sometimes you're searching for Bernie. Are you ever searching for Carol? Ever searching for little Carol?
My entire life I was called Diahann. Mm-hmm. So that was...
It happened early.
That was in my favor. It started when I was like this.
Oh, really?
I was Diahann. But my mother sort of loved the name Carroll, so she, put it in there. But the adjustment to Diahann Carroll was not enormous. A friend of mine in high school, we decided that we should go to the Arthur Godfrey show and be a part of the... it's one of those original American Idol ideas that goes, it's the same thing. It comes back every 10 years
Was
or
this
so.
Chance of a Lifetime?
Chance of a Lifetime with Dennis James. No, sorry, Arthur Godfrey. I think Arthur
Talent
Godfrey.
Scouts. He had Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts.
Thank you.
But you won 3 times in a row on Chance of a Lifetime, which
Well,
nobody had done before.
I'm happy you're, because I'm older than you. My memory is not as good about these things.
Once you wear these earrings, it all comes back. It all will come back. These are memory earrings. More than an earring.
But I think she decided to change her name, which was Alyssa Oppenheimer, and my name, which was Carol Diane Johnson. She became Lisa Collins, and I became Diahann Carroll. And it really was not that important to me. I never thought that I would carry this name until I was 71 years of age. But
Can I just say, you look phenomenal.
Nice. That's very nice. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, because it takes a lot of time and effort. I love the way people walk. How do you do it? You don't want to know, because
Is it Palmolive soap? What's the secret, Diane?
Palmolive soap.
Yes.
That's adorable. It's the same thing we hear about all the time that we don't want to do. It's
Yes.
diet and exercise, and then good health care.
Yeah. So when did you first know you had this gift of singing? I know you were in the church choir.
I think everyone in my family discovered that I was an extroverted child when I was approximately 7, 8, something like that. I wanted to be a part of the church choir, very much so, and always vying for the solo in the church choir, never embarrassed to perform. I was aggressive. You couldn't think for a moment that I was going to be a shy wallflower.
Yeah.
I don't think my father cared for that. He didn't really feel that ladies should pursue show business. It was not, it didn't have the kind of dignity that my father wanted for me. I understand that. You know, it was extremely difficult to find work of the kind of caliber that I had dreamt. Whenever I saw a film and I saw a lady perform who was the leading lady in the film, I thought if I studied drama and I studied voice, that eventually I would be offered this role. I lived in a bubble.
So you dreamt it. You dreamt
You
your
work
success.
hard and it will come to you.
Yes.
So dealing
But
with...
did you dream it, Diane?
I did.
You visualized it, you felt it, you saw it?
The minute I saw anything, I always visualized myself doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I could be whatever. I lived, thank heavens, my early childhood was totally, in school, was totally integrated. And that was part of my lack of information. I didn't know that the industry was going to say to me, no, that role is not for you. This role is for you over here. Mm-hmm. I prefer not to do that role. I prefer to do this role. Well, you don't understand. And as I began to gather information, I realized that racism, like everything else, is really based, it has its base, its core, in finance. Mm-hmm. It's about money. And I was not so surprised, really, when I realized blacks in America, we have no face outside of America. We have no international, we're much better today. Mm-hmm. But when I came along, I would travel and people would say to me, what do you mean you're an American? Because we had no face. Mm-hmm. The world had not seen black people on screen. They'd not seen black people anyplace. Mm-hmm. So I was asked on more than one occasion, tell me what you think you're saying when you say to me that you are an American. Mm-hmm. Are you from the islands? Mm-hmm. Did your parents go? I said, no, I was born in the Bronx. I was raised in New York City. Mm-hmm. My mother's from North Carolina. My father's from South Carolina. I'm an American. Mm-hmm. I'm a black American.
Yeah.
Well, that was rare. That was rare to venture, because when I was a child, I was traveling, trying to find my footing in Europe as well as in the United States. But I traveled so long ago, I suppose it was in the 50s, that the airplane, where we put our luggage now, those were sleeping quarters. I stepped on a stepladder into my bed after we'd had this glorious meal. It was just really an incredible experience. And there are few ladies who are still working in on airplanes who've said to me, "I've heard your story. I was there.
Wow.
I remember too." And I don't tell me how old you are, and I won't tell you how old I am. But riding in an airplane at that time was glorious. We were talking about flip-flops. We had no flip-flops. Flip-flops were on the beach only. And people dressed and so on and so forth. We came from a time when it was... Anyway, I always believed that whatever I wanted in this business,
you could manifest it.
If I worked for it, if I asked for it, and if I auditioned for it, that it should be mine. So I became really known as pretty much a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. But it was a good name.
Now, you went to the High School of Music and Art. That was a breakthrough for you, to be really honing your skills?
Well, it was important for me.
Because a lot of kids don't get that opportunity.
Well, you know, it was during the time when there were examinations that we were allowed to, and if you passed the exam, then you were a student at the High School of Music and Art. And the reason that was so important for me, because it was not only just about my work, which was music, and I was not a dance student ever, because I hate to fool people, but my sense of rhythm is not great. Sorry to disappoint, but I felt that music and art was absolutely necessary when I began to work and learn there, and I was exposed to teachers who asked much more of the student than I had been asked in my previous schooling. It was wonderful to learn that my mind was respected. I learned that by some of our professors who asked that I read the Atlantic Monthly, this particular young. He said, "I'd like you to read the Atlantic Monthly, and I'd want you to read the New York Times every Sunday. And I'd like you to the report from the Atlantic Monthly and the New York Times." And that was not a part of my home. That was not a part of my parents' thinking. So it was immediately a challenge to become a more profoundly informed person. That was a gift.
Do you think that's important for an actor?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think it's important if you're a creative person.
For this?
Absolutely. The mind, you need to be exposed to things that were not available to me in the Black community. So as I learned what it was that I had to fight for to become a person who was a much more international person, I fought those battles. I fought them in NBC, the studio, when we did Julia, when there were no makeup rooms, hair rooms that were available to me. And I heard ridiculous remarks such as, "Don't worry about it, we can take care of you because we've made up Lena Horne, so we know what to do with you." I said, "Well, you're in for a big surprise because Lena and I are, you're supposed to be an artist, you're supposed to be a makeup artist, you're supposed to be, Lena and I are not the same color. We're of the Black race, but we're not the same color. That's the same as saying every blonde is the same color. Don't be silly. Of course we're not the same color." That was an interesting battle, and there was a wonderful man who ran the makeup hair department named Danny Strepek, who said, "We're not prepared for her. We need to be prepared. She's a star of one of our shows here at NBC 20th Century Fox." And Danny asked for what I needed, and I sat in on a few of those meetings. And I'm telling you all this, I believe, because sometimes people say to me, "Why don't you put up more of a fight? Why don't you?" I said, "I think I'd like to rest on my laurels a little bit for a little while, because since the 50s, there was no one else. I was there alone."
In the 50s, weren't you banned from the Bell telephone hour?
I certainly was.
What did they say to you?
That my dress was too low. I mean, it was practically to here. And then when I asked that I be reinstated, please, into the program, they brought a huge piece of fabric, tulle, and they covered me to here. The remarks and the generalization about the dusky, sexy. I mean, I lived with all of that junk. You know, it was embarrassing, it was demeaning, but you had to find a place of humor in here in order to overcome. You also had to know your enemy. No, because if you don't know your enemy, then you don't know. So I definitely integrated my life because I knew that if I didn't have the information about how to push myself forward, I would never, I had to make the suggestions.
Yes.
I had to. And the learning process was long and hard. And as I say, lonely. I was in the hospital on 3 occasions because of stress.
I think one time you were doing No Strings on Broadway, and family was visiting, and you tried to do double duty, and you exhausted yourself, and I think some of your earnings had to go to rehabilitating your health at that particular time.
Yes, I was hospitalized twice seriously. Julia was really very, very hard to do. They had decided to do something quite wonderful, but they didn't quite know what to do. Mm-hmm. They had never had a black star of a television series. And whatever it was that I objected to, I wanted to be able to go to my executive producer to do that. And it was amazing that I had said that I might have some objections.
Or opinions.
What is she talking about? Yeah. You know, I mean, it was really, it was a challenge, and I enjoyed very much.
If a woman does it,
it's enough of a problem.
It's enough of a problem.
Add a black woman, my God, they're ready to burn down the studio rather than listen to you.
But I mean, if a woman does it, they're called a bitch. Isn't that true?
To this day.
To this day. Mm-hmm. You know, a man can say anything he wants, but that's sort of what happens.
He's trying to be helpful. The male is trying to be helpful. He's trying to create something that involves everyone. The female is trying to be a bitch. She wants her way, mm-hmm. no matter what. But I think I've proven through the years that I'm a team player. I'm about the project. And it took a while for me to make that reputation for myself, but I think I have.
I was very moved in reading about the time that you went on to the lot for A Different World, for which you won an Emmy nomination. And you saw all these black shows. And you were sort of emotionally moved because these people on the set had no idea what had come before. When you did Carmen Jones and Porgy and Bess, after the shoot, it was over. You left California and there were no other parts. So is that sort of interesting to live with, that you really were at the point where you went through the tough times and people today don't realize what you went through?
There are some young people who recognize, not all, but I think for the most part. The day that I walked onto the set of A Different World, there was no other black show on the lot, but to look at all of these young black actors and actresses who had been there successfully for more than several years, and they were television people. Mm-hmm. I had never seen that before. Mm-hmm. I had never seen a group of young black actors who were raised on a television series. And they made me cry. They didn't know anything else except the fact that they had this television show that belonged to them, fortunately, I had a family member who was one of the writers on the show, and she called and asked if I would be a part of it. I was delighted to be a part of it, but I also said to them that they broke my heart. They had their homes and their families, and they were able to marry and have children, and I'd never seen that before. It was so wonderful that maybe a lot of what I did in the beginning had some power to it. You know, it was really...
when Halle Berry gave her acceptance speech, and she thanked you in the acceptance speech, how did you handle that?
I ran to the screen and I kissed her. I didn't realize that Halle had done that kind of homework on my background. I had met Halle. We talked about the fact that she wanted to do Dorothy Dandridge, the life story of Dorothy Dandridge, and I was able to be helpful in some way because I'd worked with Dorothy on I think two occasions. Yes, Porgy and Bess and Porgy and Bess and Carmen Jones. But I didn't expect that from Halle, and you can see I'm a sobber here, and so I was terribly moved that she took that moment to do that. I was also moved again when the camera panned through the audience, and I realized that there was so many, particularly European actors, who had no idea what Halle was going on about. Mm-hmm. They had not the slightest idea that we worked in this segregated community. Mm-hmm. They came in, they did their films, and then they left. They went back to London or wherever they went. And it was nice. They either worked with someone who's a major star at that time, like Denzel Washington and so on and so forth. But the fact that we had been through all of these years mm-hmm. and were discussing still that the Academy Award should be given to a black woman in what year did she win it? To a 2000?
2000.
2000 was amazing. Mm-hmm. I saw the looks on several of the faces. What is Halle rambling on and on about? Why doesn't she just take the award and get the hell off the stage? But she stood her ground. She stood her ground, and she remembered the whole history, and I'll always love her for that.
I believe she recently came to see you at Feinstein's in New York.
She did.
She did.
Yes, yes.
And you got amazing reviews.
Wasn't that lovely?
Amazing.
Yes, I was thrilled about that. I tried to retire. I don't want anyone to think. I really tried. I tried for maybe 2 or 3 years. I really wasn't doing anything in particular, and I thought, I can do this. I can't do that. I don't understand taking the thing that has propelled you through your entire life and walking away from it and saying, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm done. There must be something that somebody wants me to do someplace. I know so much the feeling of people like, I did Norma Desmond, and she was no longer needed. She was no longer wanted mm-hmm. because the movies had become talkies. And she had started when there were no talkies. I know that feeling very, very well. And sometimes you question yourself. You say,
seriously, Diahann?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You actually think that?
Oh, of course I do. Why don't I go home and sit down? And when you want to create, the juices don't stop flowing. Mm-hmm. You want to do something. And I know there are a lot of people out there who say, I remember her name. What did she do? Did she do Room 222? What did she do? I remember that lady. But you have to understand they're entitled to say that. First of all, most of the studios are run by very young people today. And really, I came along when that was not at all possible. These people want to do television and film and retire at 45. And that's not the world that I'm familiar with. But I'm enjoying this challenge, to allow people to see what I came from. Mm-hmm. We have walked away. We've done a fine job of dismissing our real background. I think too much so. It's lovely to remember, where you came from.
Where you came from, absolutely.
Yes, it helps you with what you think you are doing today.
You had a very, I would say, middle-class upbringing, loving, doting parents. You went to NYU for a little while and then went on auditions, and your parents said to you, I believe, try it for a couple of years. If you don't succeed for a couple of years, try something else.
No, you're going back to school. If you don't succeed in 2 years, you're going back to school. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had to do that because, my parents were very serious people about things like that. Within that 2-year period, incredible things happened to me. I mean,
House of Flowers.
that's right.
You were how old?
19, 18? 19.
Starring on Broadway at 18 is pretty incredible.
I think so. I think so more now than I'm much more appreciative of it now than I was at the time, because I really didn't realize that, quite frankly, that working with this genius, which I always wanted to work with the best, working with this genius and having these creations from Truman Capote.
Did you meet him?
He wrote the book.
Yeah, but did you meet him?
Oh, please.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. Truman Capote was the one. When I came into the theater.
It was Harold Arlen and Truman Capote.
That's right. And George Balanchine, for those of you who are interested in dance, George Balanchine was the choreographer. And I went to do the audition for the second time. And I flew in from Los Angeles because I was told at the last minute that I had to come back to meet everyone again. They wanted to see me once more, which that just happens in this profession. But when I arrived in New York, I went immediately to the beauty salon so that I could look my best. And I fell asleep in the chair. And the gentleman who was doing my hair, he cut off all of my hair. And it was a cute little look, you know.
That you didn't ask for.
I did not even kill him. But the strange thing is that
Diane, he's here tonight. Bring him out, the hairdresser.
Well, I don't. It's a double-edged sword for me because I don't know how to thank him. Because Truman Capote, the moment he saw me with all my hair cut off, he said, "Oh, I love your hair." I thought, really? I knew that I must look like a strange-looking little boy or something.
Bingo!
But he was one of the most charming, gifted men I had ever had the pleasure of working with, and he was very, very, extremely helpful. Harold Arlen wrote the music. I mean, unbelievable. Harold Arlen wrote The Man That Got Away and Over the Rainbow and a few little hits that...
Now, when you saw Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Capote, what did you think?
I had to see it twice because he was so on the nose. Mm-hmm. Every gesture he really captured, even Truman as he was going through his thought process about anything. He was outstanding. I didn't see how anyone could possibly win the Academy Award over Seymour's performance. And it was great to see that he had enjoyed Truman, because Truman was a character to be enjoyed. He really was. I was young enough to have that experience. But that was the beginning.
And soon after, Richard Rodgers decides to write a show for you called No Strings.
Yeah. You can see how I became very spoiled there for a while because I thought, this is never going to end.
Yes.
Started with Truman Capote and Harold Arlen, and then the show was over, and I suppose I started working in nightclubs, that sort of thing. And then shortly thereafter, the phone rang again, and it was Richard Rodgers, who had seen me on something called The Tonight Show, which...
Jack Parr was hosting
Jack
at the time?
Parr.
You did 50 or so episodes of Jack Parr?
Did I really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
All right, I knew it was a lot.
He liked you.
Yes, he did. I loved it because he used to call me exotic. And I thought it was adorable. Finally, one day I said to him, you know, I was born in the Bronx. He said, you were? Yeah, he said, you don't sound like you were born in the Bronx. I said, well, I've studied. And you're not supposed to bring your Bronx accent to your work. But
did you did you have an accent? Did you work on your voice?
I worked on, yes, pronunciation.
Because you have amazing articulation.
Thank you. That worked for a while, and then everyone said, you know, she just doesn't sound black enough. And I said, well, you don't know enough blacks. What are you talking about?
Now,
awful lot of people out there that sound like me.
That's right.
So when you played Claudine,
Yes.
and a wealth, 6 kids on welfare, did you have to do a whole shift?
Well, I was raised with that. Claudine, there were Claudines in my neighborhood, every
in Harlem?
place.
You lived well in Harlem?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was high school like a blackboard jungle for you?
high school was deliciously beautiful. It was called the High School of Music and Art.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was told by a teacher in my junior high school that I should apply to the High School of Music and Art. And my mother insisted, very clever. She said, if you pass this exam, I'll take you shopping. That was the beginning.
That was the sealer right there. Yeah.
But
with Claudine, you had to really come up with the goods for this.
I lived around that.
So
that's not so difficult to go
wasn't.
back to, You can just dig right down in there and say,
All right.
It's sitting right there. And she was an uneducated woman. I had 6 children, I think, by different men. So it would not be, when you're finding the character, when you're doing the work to find what you can bring to the character, I had the joy of understanding that my relatives sound like I felt Claudine should sound. They hadn't been to drama school.
Wow.
So, it was not so. The thing that was difficult in Claudine was she wore nothing, and everyone felt that I was going to bring a kind of dignity, whatever, that she should not represent, that she needed to represent the ghetto. Mm-hmm. When we made sure that the look was perfect, I was not coming in false eyelashes and makeup and so on and so forth. We did those
And these
tests.
earrings were not worn.
These earrings were, no, this would have been fun. Claudine would have worn these on a Saturday night. But working with James Earl Jones, which was an honor.
Yes.
And a brilliant director, excellent script. I came to the piece because my friend, who had helped to put the project together, her name was Diana Sands. She was very ill, and most of the producers, directors did not want me for this role, and she asked them to please send for me. They were in New York, I was in California. And I flew into New York, and I met with the director, and he said, why do you want to do this role? And I said, because I know this woman. And he said, well, she's never been a part of your career. I said, no, but that doesn't mean I'm not familiar with this woman. Mm-hmm. And I think that as an actress, you give me the opportunity, I think we can make this work. And I wanted to do it very much for my friend. We'd gone to elementary school together, Diana Sands. And she was always very smart, and she always was, the teachers were very interested. I wanted to do it for her. And we worked, I suppose, until 3 o'clock in the morning. Then we get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the set. That's my drama coach and myself. I worked very hard, and I was very pleased with the outcome.
Diana said, hire Diahann Carroll.
She certainly did. Mm-hmm. We did that for each other during the time that I was on Julia. I asked for a black friend, and there was this long pause about, how do we do that? How are we going to make this work? And finally, I recommended, but it's always going to be a difficult thing, and that you're going to have to go in and state your case and make your fight as much of a lady as you can call upon to make your fight. But I said, there's a young lady in New York, her name is Diana Sands, and she's brilliant. And my executive creative producer, writer said to me, I know her. He said, she's a stage actress. I said, no, she's an actress. She's an actress. Let's get her out here. She was wonderful. She was so wonderful that my executive producer decided to write a show for her.
Was that Hal Cantor?
That's right. And I said, Hal, what are you doing to me? I bring her to you, and now you're going to make her competitive with me, but please do it. It did not work. I'm sorry that it did not work, but she was the beginning of, we were great buddies on the show. I don't remember, 2 or 3 episodes. But I got her on.
Excellent.
You know,
Good
it was
for
just.
you. That camaraderie is so
it's
vital.
so important.
So important. Because sometimes actors feel, I can't tell anybody else. I mean, everybody wins when everybody wins.
During that period, we were very apart. We were absolutely isolated from each other because there were only 2 or 3 jobs a year. So we didn't do what young people do today. We did not say, I want him to be my producer or my director or even co-star with me, which happens in the Black community more than I've ever seen it in my life. I've never lived through a period where Black artists are supporting each other to the extent that they are over the last, 10, 15 years, something like that. It's very, very nice to see.
Excellent. Very good. I want to go back to No Strings because you were nominated for a Tony Award. You're sitting in the audience, and they announce the nominees. Anna Maria Alberghetti, Molly Pecan for Milk and Honey, Elaine Stritch for Sail Away, and then they mention Diahann Carroll, and the winner is, and they mentioned Diahann Carroll. What was going on? Were you shaking? Were you thrilled? Were you in shock?
Yes, I was. I didn't believe it. And walking there, the only reason I'm not saying anything about the cell phone because it might be mine.
Exactly.
But if it's not mine, I
Yes.
wish you'd do something about it.
Yes. You know what's so amazing about the cell phone phenomenon is that people don't talk to each other anymore walking along the street. Everybody's on the cell phone. People, it's strange because people are looking for people on the computer with Match.com. If they put their cell phones away, they might meet somebody. Crazy thought. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I find so amusing is a family coming together, trying to relate in the evening, and everyone has a phone.
Yes.
And they're talking to, it's never, hi, Mom, or hi. But we're going to have to go through this period
Yes.
as we learn how to deal with technology and the pluses as well as the minuses that this has presented to our daily living. Our children are subjected to horrible situations because of their freedom on this, I call it the machine. But
people are wearing clips on their ears now. I don't know if they're Vulcans from Star Trek, but you see, everyone's got a clip on their ear.
Well, we're doing everything we possibly can to not communicate with each other. And it can't be. There's no way we can move forward. Technology has done so many fabulous things. I love the fact that I can pick up the telephone and I'm 10,000 miles from my grandchildren and I can say hello. That's wonderful.
Yes.
But there are other things that have invaded our privacy that are just, I've purchased my own name twice because someone has bought my name
Yes.
and they're using it to sell product. And the only way for me, I don't think that exists anymore. Is that still, isn't that amazing?
We can buy somebody's domain.
Yes. That's amazing, and it's sad.
But you bought it back.
Yes, but we'll overcome this. I
Yes.
mean, we can't allow anything like that to happen.
But before we got this, we're talking about No Strings. You're sitting in the audience. You're a young girl. They mention your name. You're the winner. And you must have been riveted.
I was. It was very, very difficult for me to walk to the podium.
Because everybody watches award shows. And then the winner is, and we always want that emotional speech. Do you know what I mean? And when
Yes.
if it's not emotional, we're a little upset.
I never expected to win that. It never crossed my mind. I thought, it's wonderful that I've been nominated, but I never expected to win. So I shared it that year, didn't I?
Anna Maria Alberghetti.
That's right. I just looked at Richard Rodgers' face and I cried, what I do all the time, because he believed in me. And he said he would form a project for me, and he did. And he made it work, I think, beyond anyone's dream that Richard Rodgers would have done this. He was a strange man. He was a brilliantly gifted man, but he was not a warm man. So the fact that he decided to, because he saw some young girl singing on the Tonight Show who happened to be black, that he would make this show work for me. I was very honored by that.
So you do the show, you win the Tony. They decide in Hollywood to make a movie out of it. They hire Nancy Kwan, and they went Eurasian instead of black.
I was furious. I was absolutely furious. And I called everyone I knew, everyone who was a journalist, and I explained that it was not only because I hoped that the part would have been offered to me, but that it was offered to no black female. Why is that? This is a story about a young black girl who went to Paris and became, why must she not be black? And it was explained to me because there is no part of the world that understands the black actor, that they're there wanting exposure. If we want to make money on our films, we cannot put black actors in starring roles. We can't do that.
We can do it on Broadway, but we can't do it on film.
Cannot do it on film. And I thought it was a crime, so there was a lovely man, his name was Earl Wilson, and he called and he said, would you like us to sit down and talk? I said, would I? Let's sit down and talk. And then it was the front page of the Post, the New York Post, the following day, that I was not of course I was disappointed, but I was objecting to the fact, how dare you say to me, there is no black actress that can play this part. That's ridiculous. Then it confess that it is a financial decision.
So after you get nominated for Claudine, I believe you flew back at one point from LA to New York, and Sue Mengers was on the flight, and you said, let's talk business when we get back to LA, and she said to you,
I don't want to work that
Sue
hard.
Mengers is a big agent with ICM.
Major. She was major. And she said, I don't want to work that hard, Diane. You are absolutely a wonderful, she was very kind about it. She said, you're a wonderful talent. And I have and when I wake up in the morning, my telephone is ringing off because I have Paul Newman, I have da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and they're all major stars. And I said, well, thank you. She said, I don't want to work that hard. Do you realize what it would take to make you the kind of star you should be? Well, she broke my heart, and she also gave me a big hug at the same time, because she told me the truth.
You do a movie called Paris Blues. You mentioned Paul Newman.
Yes.
Excellent, superb movie. Joanne Woodward. Sidney, what was his name? Sidney? Sidney. Poitier, yes.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Does that sound familiar at all?
Yes.
Yes. Wow. In your book, what a story. You and Sidney.
It was a 9-year movie.
Whoa.
We were very fortunate.
Have you ever thought of making that a movie? That story?
Make a hell of a movie.
Hell of a movie.
Yes, it really would. We were both married. It was one of those, we looked at each other, and I hate to sound like a 2-year-old, but we were romantic children, and we looked at each other and we thought, oh, that's what I've been looking for. And in so many ways, it was true. We were very helpful to each other. He was a West Indian, which gives a very strong male image. they are, I would say, more demanding of women than the Black American male. And I had not been in the presence of that before. That was a growing lesson for me, being with him, just being with him. But also the fact that we read scripts for each other, we trained each other, we talked about the industry and what we could and we could not accomplish. When he did Raisin in the Sun, I was so proud of him. It was a play written by a young Black woman, Lorraine Hansberry, and the fact that he left Hollywood and went back to Broadway to do Raisin in the Sun. It was a marvelous time. And we're both very proud of that period in our lives. We are expressive about it and proud about it.
So in Paris Blues, there must have been a lot of sensual tension on the set.
I would say...
Paris, Sidney, you.
But don't forget Paul and Joanne.
No, I would never.
They were getting together, and with the same problems. We were just four little lost people in Paris.
I'll drink to that.
Trying to figure out, how do we handle this now? I don't remember who was married in the Paul-Joanne situation, but I know both of us, Sidney and I, were both married. And it was a lovely time because we all felt great sympathy for each other. And we spent a lot of time together.
Because your first husband, Monte K, was the casting director, I believe, for House of Flowers. And he's the father of your child,
Right.
Suzanne.
Correct. Monte K also owned something in New York City called Birdland, which was had an incredible history.
And he managed Flip Wilson and,
Yes,
and the Modern
that was
Jazz
later.
Quartet.
Right, that's right. He brought Flip to California to that was the Flip Wilson show. I remember when he locked Flip in his brownstone, he locked him downstairs and he said, "You're not coming out until you finish this," because Flip had wonderful ideas for about 20 minutes, and then he was... Monte became very parental, and it worked. They came to California to produce the Flip Wilson show. You know, the devil made me do it. It was just...
Oh, he was brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
He also was instrumental in bringing Brazilian music to this country. But the adorable thing was in my family, there had been no mixed marriages, as we call them in this country. Whenever I hear mixed marriage, I always think, well, it's a man and a horse.
That was a play, Equus. That was Equus.
But anyway, that's what we say in this country, because we're naive. But anyway, when I had the baby, my dad was very busy not acknowledging the marriage. And he called one afternoon and he said, "I want to come, I'd like to see the baby." And I thought it was a marvelous idea. But then my father, you must remember, was from the South, and he had endured horrible, just horrible. And he did say to me on the day that I married, he said to me, "You do know that you are marrying the enemy." And I was torn apart by that. My heart went out to my dad, but I knew that there was a world out there that he would become a part of if I had anything to do with it. Anyway.
He came around?
He came, yes, he came to see the baby. And Monte came in, and Monte was one of the most sharing, caring human beings that I have ever known in my life. And my dad and he sat down, started laughing and talking, and Monte had a great sense of humor, and so did my dad. And my father, his entire racism changed because of his relationship with my first husband. And it made me happy for my dad. Monte had worked most of his life with blacks, Latins, Chinese, whatever. He was a very international man. So it didn't matter if you were. And that was good for my dad. It was very good for him to have that experience, and it made all of us grow.
When you had to tell Monte, "I'm in love with Sidney," that's got to be tough.
Well, it was horrible because I loved Monte. Monte was an incredible man. And it's not just an ex-wife saying that. I mean, the whole industry knew that. The papers, when he passed on, paid great tribute to this man. I finally said to him that this had happened to me in California, and that I was sorry, and I thought I had tried to overcome this situation, but I didn't think I was going to be able to, and that Sidney was in the same predicament. And this man, as I moved from my home and I moved into this new situation, Monte was my first visitor, and he said to me, just in case things don't go so well, this is for you. He gave me a check for $10,000. That was Monte K.
Wow.
So I'm very blessed to have had Monte in my life.
How beautiful. How beautiful that you can say that about someone you're married to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I feel that way, and I feel he was a wonderful dad, and I think he made a contribution to the raising of my child that she will carry forever. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was people who didn't want to hurt each other. We really did not.
Well, I was very moved when at one point Sidney says, I want us to meet, you, Monte, in a restaurant, and I want to talk to him face to face.
Yes, he did say that. And we met. And it was the most uncomfortable moment of my life. But I thought, aren't you fortunate that you have two men of this caliber to sit down at the same table and discuss? I'm married to Monte K, and there sits this man saying, I think I'd like to marry your wife. I thought, you can't make this up. This is unbelievable.
Would you like salad or soup?
Yeah.
Wow.
They had great respect for each other. They did, and they handled it that way.
You have a largesse in your life, in your being, that you're able to manifest so much in your life. Where did that come from? There's the word chutzpah. You know, you say what you want, you fight for what you believe in, you create.
But Bernie, you know, I was raised in New York City.
That's right. You're right.
Yes.
I knew Bernie would show up sooner or later.
That's a different kind of being.
Yeah.
You know, it's we are very direct. We're very honest and very direct. And I think people who say that they don't want to raise their children in New York, they don't know anything about New York. It's a glorious place. It's difficult, but so is life. So you're more prepared for life and the challenges. It's also the things that are there for children in terms of education. It's a phenomenal experience. So I think all of that, New York made me the way I am. I think
Let's hear it
so.
for New York.
Yeah, I think so. I don't, today, when I go to New York, I'm more relaxed. I know those people. Hey, Diane, you know.
How you doing?
How you doing, Diane? Haven't seen you still working?
It's refreshing.
It is. You were. Weren't you supposed to marry that guy, David Frost? They ask you every possible question.
Yes.
On the street, at the top of their lungs, but they mean it.
Yeah.
They mean it. I said, it didn't work out. Don't worry. It's.
Speaking of Mr. Frost,
Yes.
you guys made a very handsome couple.
Thank you.
Really?
We thought so.
I mean, he's one of the most intelligent beings on the planet.
I would agree with that.
Was he always mentally stimulating?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yes. He was. I'm also happy to say that I can point to that friendship today. But I think that once again, I found someone who was supportive, who wanted me to have what I felt I needed, which was my career. And he exposed me to more in life. Each person took me to another plateau. David was the same. And also it was another plateau for my father.
Wow.
Very much so, because David was producing, as those of you who are old enough to remember, he was producing a wonderful television show here in the United States.
That was
in
the
New
week
York.
that was.
Yes. And then the David Frost show.
Yes.
And each time that he felt there was something about what he was doing that would interest my parents, he would send for them to come and be a part of it. Yes, he was, once again, you know, I guess who said that maybe it takes several people to make the one partner that you need? It might be true for me. I never thought of it like that.
They say sometimes a relationship for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. You've heard that.
Yes, I have. I think I was blessed, really. I'm very...
You married a gentleman, Robert
DeLeon.
and he was 15 years younger, but you decided to almost retire for a while.
Yes. Robert, once again, was a genius. Robert was in Morehouse College on a scholarship, I think at 15. And that is, I think, the foremost black college in the United States, male. And he was so wonderful to be with him. I didn't really concentrate on the age difference. I really did not. And it was a foolish judgment on my part. We were too far apart, really, in age. And it's difficult because I will never forget, we came home one evening after dinner, and I walked in, and someone was in our den, and they were looking at the television, and I said, "Oh, my heavens, there's Gene Tierney." I said, "Oh, there's Gene Tierney." And he said, "Which one is he?" Gene Tierney was one of the most beautiful women in the history of film. But he thought it was a male name, so it must have been one of the guys on the screen. And I looked at him and I said, "You're too young to know who Gene Tierney is."
Wow.
But there were other things that were, serious problems that came about. But I know women who make that sort of situation work for them, and men make it work for them more often than women. But their reasons are not as as high-minded.
There's a new term now. There's a bimbo and a himbo.
Yes, I've heard about that. Neither is kind, if you feel that's what you want to do with your life.
You meet somebody, you fall in love. Who's to say what's right, what's wrong?
No one.
No one.
No.
If you're happy, it's nobody's business.
And I've always believed that, when I pass on, if you're going to pass on with me, then you may pass judgment, but I'm going to die alone. So whatever I'm doing here, I trust my judgment. I'm allowed to make mistakes like everyone else, and I have, God knows, but it was all a learning process. And
you had a tough time because he was taken away from you in a car accident.
Right.
That must have been a gigantic hurdle.
It was. I was not that surprised because I had learned about a problem with alcohol, and I always worried whenever he was driving, but it was horrible because we hadn't been together very long. And also he was too young and too brilliant to be taken away. But that's life.
Mm-hmm. You said in grief, when somebody dies, you realize how precious life is.
Yes, I really wanted the opportunity to watch Robert grow. That would have been very stimulating for me.
So you went back to work right away because that was your savior, to plunge.
Always.
Always.
Always. I don't know what I would have done all of my life without my work. It always puts focus on who you are at that moment, because you can't do what you did 10 years ago. So you have to begin to examine who you are, why you want to sing this, or why you want to play this character, and you didn't really want to do that. It's a growing process, and I think that's why it's so hard for me to let go of my work. I cannot say that it is not the largest part of my life. I know that's difficult for children when they hear that from their parents, but the child is within that. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to raise a child. It may be selfish to want all of it because you can't be at home as often as a normal person.
But your daughter adapted well.
I won't say that. No, she's had problems with it. She had so many of us in my profession. We have problems with our children understanding that we are so driven by something that is not about them. And we have to admit it. It's true.
How does Diahann Carroll approach a song?
The same way I approach a character, finding out what is in there that has meaning for me, Diahann, and then interpreting the material with what I feel are my tools, and adding what I've learned through the years in my classes and my...
You studied with Lee Strasberg?
Yes, and others as well. And the meat of what it is that you're trying to put in front of an audience is, that's the fun. That's the fun. When you begin to do that digging and you find whatever it is that you know will connect you to the character and your audience. You're telling the story from a point of view that only you can. No one else is going to interpret it the way you can. And as we're finding with the director and what it is that's going to move that audience, what it is that's going to make them understand who it is and what I'm trying to say, that's the best part.
So I believe in Feinstein's you did Some of These Days, originally done by Sophie Tucker. I've Got You Under My Skin. Do you find your own personal subtext?
Oh, yes.
So
I can't do Some of These Days like Sophie Tucker.
Right.
You know, it's hers.
But you find your own voice, your own story, your own backstory.
Yeah. My life helps to dictate how I interpret whatever it is, whatever character it is. And that's true of all of us. And if you've had some training, pulling off the layers and allowing yourself to be that naked sometimes is very difficult. It was very difficult on several roles that I had, but I wanted to do it. And I think if you're going to be involved in the business of acting, you have to understand that that's necessary.
Eve's Bayou was extraordinary. I loved your character there. You all saw Eve's Bayou? Wow. That was some character.
She was strange. She was definitely strange. That's why you really have to be open at all times. I was going through something that was very difficult for me at that time. I'm not going to tell you the name of it because it's not so flattering, but I was covered in pimples. And when I arrived at the set, the director said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know, we have to work this out together. So we did, and we decided that this lady was crazy enough to wear white makeup and this white wig, which would allow me to do my work without having to worry about the fact that I was covered in pimples.
Brilliant.
So we painted and painted and painted until we finally covered everything. And then I began to examine the character through insanity. She was crazy. Total, anyone who paints their face white and walks around through the neighborhood, you know, she's insane. So I had a hell of a good time doing this part.
You know, Walter Matthau was married to his wife, and she wore white makeup a lot. Did you know that?
Well, she was married to Walter. I'm sorry, Walter.
I never thought of that. Yes, there you go.
That brilliantly talented man was absolutely insane himself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I didn't know she wore white makeup. Did she have pimples? What was it?
I don't know. Late puberty. So we have some questions from the audience here. Jadine Barber, I was fortunate enough to see No Strings 3 times and loved your performance. What was your favorite musical or drama? Favorite leading man on Broadway?
Favorite leading man on Broadway? Well, let me see. I had Richard Kiley in No Strings, and I didn't have a leading man. You mean working opposite me, or just in general?
Jadine?
Yes, working on.
Working opposite me. Well, Richard Kiley was my, Richard Kiley was an incredible actor and a wonderful singer, and presented me with a challenge, but also his method of work, because during the middle of the play, at some point, there's a fatigue point that happens, and I began to lose the same scene every night. I would lose it. And I made up words that I repeated every night. I don't know why that happened. But I changed the song from the lyric that had been written by Richard Rodgers to something, I think it was a horse appears and then it's May. So first things first, I always say, because I didn't know, I couldn't remember. So he did something that no one had ever done for me. He said, we're going to start working before we go to the theater, and we'll go to the theater together. So he met me at my home, and I played his role, and he played mine.
Wow.
And it opened the scene for me in an entirely new information from playing a male. I knew his role, but I was able to relate to him, and he to me, and I never forgot the scene again. It was, he had made it too strong and too much a part of my being.
You were so excited in that. That's why I went 3 times.
Oh, I thank you, because I was really a baby. That was right at the beginning. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Have you ever done that process with anybody else?
I've tried it with others, yes, and it works.
Excellent. That's
Yes,
a great
yes.
process. Yes. Another question from Lynn Ross. Claudine is one of my favorite movies ever since I was a kid. I've seen it at least 100 times. I'd like you to pay for some of those times that I've seen this movie. It's the reason I came here tonight, to get a rebate. I love you and your work so much. When is the Claudine 2 coming?
Oh, isn't that nice? That's very nice.
It's not coming. No.
It's not
Okay.
coming. It's not coming.
Lisa asked, how do you keep yourself looking so young, so beautiful, so fit and fabulous? How much fun are you having as a grandmother?
It's the best.
The best.
It's the best. I can send them home. And the other thing that I love, because they live for most of their lives about 10,000 miles away from me,
Where do they live?
Cape Town, South Africa.
Wow.
And they have moved now, where they're trying to move to London, a little closer. But the thing that I enjoy is the unconditional love. It's just, it has nothing to do with, am I talented, am I lovely, I'm their Nana, I'm grandma. And I love the way sit all over me, and it's just the most loving. I was in the park with them recently, and my granddaughter's 3, and she was at the top of the sliding board, and she called me, and I came over. She said, she wanted me to sit next to her at the top of the sliding board. And I said, Nana can't do that, darling. I just can't do that. I'll catch you, I'll be right here. No, it's here. I climbed up.
Wow.
You think I would do that for anyone else? I climbed up the stairs and I sat down next to her. We went down together, and it was adorable. She just loved the fact that I was with her. And this lady who was at the park said, "Isn't it great that she doesn't know you're Diahann Carroll?"
That's great.
So that's why you love them. That's why you love them.
The other question was, how do you keep yourself looking so young, beautiful, and fabulous, and fit?
I was very fortunate. I had a very lean body for a very long time. And I think the habits that are demanded of us by this profession. This is not a profession that you want to walk in front of the camera, not having done what is required of you to look your best. And if you respect what you do it. I can't believe I'm still with a physical therapist doing exercise. I thought at some point someone would say, okay, you can get off the train.
Yes.
But no one says that, so you have to really do it for yourself.
At one point, you're singing at the Golden Globes. I think Barbra Streisand asked you to sing one of the songs from Yentl.
That's exactly right.
And Aaron Spelling was having a private party at Touch. And you said, I'm going to be visiting Mr. Spelling. And that is what I believe birthed.
I can't
Your
believe
character?
your research is incredible. I'm just so proud of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I sang this song. I knew that they were going to be there. I had just completed Agnes of God on Broadway. And I was very, very tired, so I spent a lot of time watching nighttime soaps. And one of them was this thing called Dynasty. Mm-hmm. And I thought, isn't that great? Look at them. They're running around in pretty dresses, saying absolutely nothing.
That's for me.
And I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I had approached him somehow, and he knew that I was there begging for a job, particularly on his show. And after I did the show, the Golden Globes, I learned that he was having this party, and I arrived. And with my own, I think there was 7 or 8 of us. And I said, I'm a guest of Mr. Spelling. She said, you are? I said, yes, I'm a guest of Mr. Spelling. Isn't he having a party? She said, yes. I said, I thought so. Would you please tell Mr. Spelling that I'm here? And I didn't think Aaron would turn me away. Very, there's a kind of arrogance and presumption that's necessary in living. So she went in and she said, Diahann Carroll is here. And she says that, and he said, bring her in immediately. Mm. And we came in, and Aaron was he said, hi. And I said, hi.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hi. And he said, we've set up a table right here for you. And I said, I'm sorry, but I just had to see you. He said, come over. I want you to meet everyone. And I met the writers, and I think a couple of people who had directed the show. And Linda, Joan, I think John, they were all there. And they were all whispering to me, which was so encouraging, that they had heard that there was a possibility and maybe. And I thought, this is fantastic. And I went back to my table, and eventually, one by one, they began to come over to say hi, and we'd like it. If this could become I was in heaven, absolute heaven.
Good for you.
And that was pushing the door.
Yes.
Pushing the door.
That's what you do. That's what you do. Even if you're Diahann Carroll.
You still have to push the door.
Exactly.
I mean, no one was going to think of putting a black person on Dynasty. But I said, you need a black bitch. You have I said, Aaron, you have done everything else. There's been incest. There's been gay to this boring. You've done everything there is to do, but you don't have a black bitch.
Yes. Love it. Everyone should have one.
I think so. I'm doing my best.
In the black culture, one time was a black bitch called a sapphire. Is that correct?
No.
It isn't.
No.
Because I read somewhere that was a term that was used.
No. Sapphire was a character on what was it? Amos and Andy?
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy. And she was domineering and really unpleasant, but she's a brilliant actress. Wonderful. It's interesting that you should mention that because my parents did not allow me to watch Amos and Andy in my home.
Wow.
They said it was, denigrating, so on and so forth. But then I reached a certain age and I was out on the road alone. And I sat down in my hotel one day and I said, I'm going to watch this episode of Amos and Andy. It was brilliant. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The work was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't believe that my parents had bought this lie that was sold to us by the white culture, that they couldn't see that this show was not only funny, it was the acting was outstanding and the scripts were wonderful. And I finally discussed with my mom and I bought a show where Amos and Andy, one of them, was going into the real estate business and he drives through the country and he sees a house that, if anybody remembers this, just yell. And he decides to go and he takes a look around. They're shooting a movie. So it's just the front of the house. It's not a house. Uh-huh. And he says to them, please don't take this down. Anyway, he gets back in his car and he drives back to town immediately. And he says, I had a house in the country. Oh, I'm going to make so much money. And so he talks to one of his buddies and they say, I want to see the house. I want to see the house. It gets him and they drive past the house. And he, stop, it's gorgeous. He said, I can't stop. I've got to keep going because there was no house. It's just the facade.
That's great.
Took him back to town. They signed the papers, sold the house, and the only thing I recall is Amos and Andy and the crowd. They opened the door with the wife, with all of their belongings, and he looked at the camera as only that brilliant actor could do, and he said, "Well, look at here. I done walk right through to the backyard."
Oh, that's great. That is great.
I will never forget that. And I told my mother, how could you keep this away from me all these years?
Diane, what do you watch now?
It's very difficult.
It's dim, isn't it?
Oh, what? I mean, thank heavens they're old movies so that I can watch brilliant performances. I don't know what to watch. I have no idea. I think I've...
Are you glued to Paris Hilton? The Simple Life?
Yeah.
Nicole Richie?
Paris would have to send me a check, really.
What do you make of that phenomenon?
I think it's part of what we better be careful about because this is what the message we're sending to our children. It's like fast food, it's really not good for you.
Yeah.
And it's degrading to women, it's degrading to people, it's degrading to relationships, it's degrading to our thought process. I mean, what is this? Mm-hmm. I thought television was supposed to bring something into our lives that we could really be proud of. But I cannot blame the creators because we watch it. We turn it on, and that's what makes the money, and that's what television is all about.
Are there some shows on now that you do like, that you feel are good shows, important shows, well-written shows, well-acted shows?
I've been asked this question a couple of times, and I promised myself that I was going to try to come up with an answer, and I have not done so. There must be something. You've recommended a couple of things to me. What? West Wing was beautifully acted. And was there another? The Office.
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, yes. I did a parody on Grey's Anatomy. And I think that's about it.
That's about it.
That's
okay.
it, yes.
Lisa Renee Pitts, as you watch the careers of young black actresses in Hollywood, how is it different from when you began? The good or the bad? Lisa, did you want to follow that up? Yes.
Hi.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, basically, you see now a lot of young black actresses are taking off their clothes now, and the language is different. And just what you were talking about before, the struggle is still there.
But you must see great progress, Diahann. I mean, I know what you're talking about. You must see great progress.
Well, it's very difficult for me to answer that in terms of race, because I don't see progress with us.
You don't?
No, not with anybody. No, I don't. I don't see. I think television it's at an all-time low. White shows, black shows, it's at an all-time low. There's no information about anything. I mean, there's a lot of people running around. I don't get it, but I do know this. The remark that I made when we started this evening, I know that those shows make money. So that doesn't mean I have to watch them. I think the fact that they are successful, I know that there are lots of...
But from your struggle periods that you went through, I mean, I think after you did Julia, Vegas was not as receptive.
Not as receptive, that's lovely.
Well, I'm being diplomatic.
Yes, you are.
Was it tough?
Totally segregated. Absolutely, totally segregated. You couldn't live in the hotel where you performed. And
So there's progress in that,
oh,
yes?
there is progress. Oh, please don't let me give.
Yeah.
There is progress, absolutely. The fact that you and I are sitting here, and that you are, what are you, a student?
No, I'm actually 35 years old.
Okay, well, you can still be a student. I'm thinking about going back to school, so I mean that. But you're an actress?
Yes, I am. I've studied at Rutgers University. I've done off-Broadway, worked with Joanne Woodward, and now I'm here in LA trying to make that transition. And the things that you're talking about as far as your struggle, not to compare it in any way with segregation, but I still find that I'm still going out for one-liners. I'm not going out for a leading role in the show. And the roles that I may be going out for, the young ladies are rolling their neck and taking off their clothes and saying derogatory things and tent babies or what have you without a husband. And that's really what my question was to you. Is there, because I can still relate to the things you're talking about, I think you understand what I'm talking about.
It depends very much on your upbringing, and if I never have been, and I don't want to be, but
But you do it very well, Diahann.
Thank you.
You do it very well.
Of course I do. That was in my neighborhood when I grew up. It may have had a different texture or something, but it was there. But there are many contributors to this role that we've been relegated to. And I think that we are more to blame than we wish to accept. I do believe that. I think that there are things on the air that we should have turned off years ago and not allowed our children to be subjected to it. And I know the people who are earning money from that are going to say, we told you she's a pain in the neck, and she says things that are stupid because she knows that the television is for the purpose of making money. And I say that a lot when I remind. So remind yourself that if you are not what they're looking for something. That's what happened to the record business. They're looking for something that probably you don't fit into that category, and they're going to go for what they're looking for. They're looking for the street. They're looking for the ghetto. They're looking for the down. You know, it's as though we've gone backwards from Julia. You know, we haven't really gone forward. She was attacked for being whatever she was, but she certainly was something that I feel very proud to say. We have, you know, we have that part of our community. We don't have to all be whatever this is.
You know, a lot of people. You're going dancing tonight, Diahann Carroll.
Dancing I love. It's attitude I don't like. You know, it's negative attitudes that I don't. Putting each other down and putting women down and talking about each other in a negative way. That I don't like. Dancing is lovely. And you can dance any way you want.
Yes.
You can even dance that way, but not when the words are not positive, when they are something that make us feel
What do you think of
bad.
rap?
Some of it is important. Some of it makes a social comment that has to be heard. I will never consider it music. I will consider it a kind of poetry. But some of it is so ugly that I'm sorry for the brain that thought to put those words on paper and then to give them to us. And I always say to our children, you know, I'm old enough to say this now. I recognize what my image meant to young children. I hear it constantly. I hear it when I'm at the airport and all the girls are I told my friend a line the other night. One of the young ladies said, "Oh, Miss Carroll," she was supposed, I had to be, you know, I was getting a female assist when you're at the airport and you're being, that's right. She said, "Oh, Miss Carroll, I just remember so well when you used to be so beautiful." And I said, "Thank you so much, darling." What a lovely thing. But I think I'm happy to know that so many young people remember. They do remember when there was something else on the air.
You know, TV Land loved. Everyone watched it. And you saw the reaction to Julia tonight on the tape.
Yes, yes.
So isn't it interesting how it played? You know, something is good, it'll play whenever.
I don't think it's a part of today. I don't want anyone to think that. I don't believe that Julia is a part of today's market. We've grown away from
Right, but
from
people
that.
enjoy nostalgia. People, you know, kids see it.
Yes, but there is a way to put Asians and Latins and blacks on television, in television series, that it's an integrated proposition.
Yes.
And we can function very well together. I've seen it done, and so have you. We just don't have enough of it. So we have this segregation now that it's shameful. It's almost as though the networks are white, and over here we have
The Real World.
Well, we have WB, and we have I don't remember all the networks, but I don't think there's a black show on a network at the moment.
Is there anybody?
What is it? See, hi,
Girlfriends.
darling. How are you? What's on?
Diana Ross's Girlfriends. Yeah. Right.
Not on NBC, CBS.
Right. Yeah.
The show with Diana's daughter's name is Tracy, is well written. It's well written, and it's they're doing a good job. And that will be where? On CW. Yeah, yeah. But I'm really, I would love to see NBC, CBS. Somebody else.
Good. Terry Ray says, "You've been such an inspiration to so many of us. Who inspired you when you were starting out, and who inspires you now?"
Well, I made it my business then to see everything and to read as much as I possibly could. To see everything means in the theater and film. And when I began, television really was not a major in anyone's life. When I was there when television started. I mean, we saw Milton Berle, it was wrestling. It was just ridiculous television when it started.
You had a special, and your guests were Harry Belafonte, Donald Sutherland, Bill Cosby, and Tom Jones. Wow.
Yeah, that's
That
what
was
television
special.
is supposed to do.
Yes.
That's what we're supposed to have in our living rooms, and well written, very well written show. I was very proud of it. Unfortunately, I didn't do more, but I can't explain that in any other. If the ratings weren't there, then I cannot say that it wasn't fair, because the ratings have to be there in order for it to duplicate itself.
So we have a question here. This is personal, so if you don't want to answer it, I understand in terms
Like
of
we haven't talked about personal.
nothing. Yes. Do you think it's difficult for men to support and relate to a woman, especially a black woman, with such a powerful career? What would you advise for choosing a partner?
Well, I'm not really the one to. I've been married 4 times. You don't come to me for advice, but
I think it's important to know what not to do as well.
thank you. That helps me. I didn't really learn a great deal about how one goes about choosing a partner when I was growing up. You got married. You're supposed to get married. But the discussion about how one is able to evaluate what there is within this person or not that works for you and works for him, so that you can come together and have a compatible relationship filled with the things that are necessary, respect and wanting the same things, many of the same things in life. That's very hard to do if you don't have a career. That's almost impossible to pull off, even if you don't have a career. Add a career to that, and you're talking about a very exceptional human being that may not be out there. I have decided at this point in my life that I really feel it is best for me to be alone. I think I was so desperate to have a relationship that I moved from one to the other so quickly. I'm not certain that I really knew Diahann that well. It's strange for me to say this, but in my late 60s, I said, why don't you stop pursuing relationships? Why don't you wait a minute and find out? It's not as though you can't have a relationship, but find out who is it that you are bringing to this relationship, and what would you like in return? Rather than, oh, isn't he? Oh, look at him. Oh, isn't he? There comes a time that we have to really examine what propelled us into a relationship, what reason, why were we there? But it is very hard. White woman, black woman, whatever. If you're a powerful woman, it's hard. It's very difficult to do. It's very difficult for a man to even want to be bothered. Why should he be bothered? He has other choices of women who will adore him, and he doesn't have to be bothered with walking into the restaurant and the man says, oh, good evening, Mr. Carroll. That's embarrassing.
But that couldn't have been true with Vic Damone.
Sometimes.
Really? Poor Vic.
Oh, he's going to kill me. No, that's not true.
You guys put on an incredible show together.
Thank you.
And have you ever seen Vic Damone and Diahann Carroll?
We worked very hard.
Diahann
we enjoyed
and Damone.
it. Yes, that's right. And we enjoyed doing it. We really did. I think Vic really wanted to stop. He really wanted to end his career. He's done that. He's retired. And until he explains that word to me, we won't have a lot to talk about. I just don't understand that word. Sorry.
Yes. You met a lot of presidents.
Yes.
You met Bush Sr., Reagan, JFK.
Yes. Where did I meet Reagan?
You were performing, and Nancy and him, I think, came afterwards.
Oh, in Palm Springs. Absolutely, that's right. There came a point when I stopped going to the White House and I stopped performing at. It was too difficult for me. I know it was great exposure, great publicity, but I didn't believe in the person that I'm trying. I mean, if I didn't know so much about or depend on this person for my country to become something I could be very proud of, maybe I wouldn't have that point of view. But I didn't want to go. I felt, even if I like him, I think I'll wait. And so I haven't performed in the White House in many years.
During Julia, it was a turbulent time. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated,
Right.
Martin Luther King was assassinated, there were the riots in Chicago. And then here was this actress who was playing this perfect kind of single mother. Did you get flack?
Oh, please, there were blacks, whites, really against the show and really attacking it.
From doing a television show, it's
Yes.
amazing how people want to throw darts.
Well, if there are black people involved in the show, very often the perception of the show is that it should have a documentary quality. I was just doing a sitcom. And I didn't write it, and they didn't write to the writers. They wrote to me. I didn't produce it. I wasn't making the top dollar. There was 20th Century Fox to attack, NBC to attack. I was a lady with a job. That's all I was. Did I say that I felt that Julia should deal with things that were more pertinent in the racial turmoil that was going on in the country? Absolutely. Did I make many inroads with those that were the powers that be? No, I did not. No. Julia was what they wanted. Should I have walked off the show? No. Absolutely
It
not.
got very high ratings.
It got very high ratings. It was my income.
It was an Emmy-nominated series.
Right. It's how I took care of my family. And what I felt I could do, I did. That was to complain. And I think we would have run longer. We would have had a longer run if I had not complained. And there were those who felt I was, pain. And that they didn't need to really be bothered with it. The ratings were beginning to drop a bit, and so that was the end of that. But I marched with Dr. King, Washington, and I did several things that I felt personally it was my responsibility to be there and be part of it. I don't know if a conversation is pertinent, if we could ask other members of this community called the United States of America, people who had been persecuted, who were Jews and were doing things that were not addressing themselves to the fact that there was the Holocaust and millions and millions and millions of Jews were. So how do you go on with your life and do a Feinstein? How Feinstein, what's his name? Feinstein.
Yeah, Michael Feinstein.
Thank
yeah.
Seinfeld, thank you. I'm getting Michael confused with. So I think that it's a major decision that I had to make. And I chose to be a part of what I felt I could make a difference. I couldn't make any inroads with NBC or 20th Century Fox, and they were very clear about that. We didn't do anything racial.
I have one last question here. Those are the most amazing earrings I've ever seen in my entire life. Could you please ask Paul how I can get a pair of those earrings?
And that's from Oprah Winfrey?
It is. That's amazing. Love Oprah.
Yes. Yeah.
So in closing, I just want to throw some names at you for some quick reactions. Jane Fonda, who you work with, and Hurry Sundown.
I like Jane. I think Jane is, she made a major mistake. We all know she made a major mistake. She knows it.
She married Ted Turner? Or?
It's one of the smartest things she ever did. But I like Jane because I believe her, and I think she's always trying to look under to find the truth. And people who do that, sometimes they fall. But I think she's strong enough to. I bet I'd put my money on Jane.
Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando is one of the most gifted human beings that ever walked the face of the earth. He just, whatever he said or did, you just wanted to watch him do that. His personal life is his personal life. We all know that there was enormous confusion there, but it didn't stop him from being. That confusion happens very often in my profession. Usually, people who are great artists have this thing that they're just a little off center.
Which makes him captivating.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm off center.
Judy Garland.
She was mesmerizing. And she was a fine actress as well as a performer. Bad beginning, very hard. It's very hard with that bad beginning. Look at those names that are on that list: the Richard Pryors and the Billie Holidays and the Judy Garlands. Judy's mother started her with medication for sleeping and losing weight when she was very, very young. It's not fair. It's just not fair. But I like Judy a lot.
What a phenomenal talent.
And what a great personality. She was smart and pain in the neck, but I like that. She was, I could identify with that.
How about Liza?
Liza is, she has to walk in Judy's shoes. She's done a hell of a good job. She certainly has proven to us that she's Liza. And that's hard to do, and my hat's off to her for that, absolutely.
Terrence Howard.
Who is Terrence? Oh my God, he's fantastic. Oh, he's unbelievable. I just cannot believe I'm so happy he's with us and that I'm here to see this man do his work. Yes, I'm a fan.
Denzel.
Denzel is extraordinary. Deserved the Academy Award long before he got it. But he's definitely made it clear to us that he's not to be denied.
Go back to the beginning. Oprah.
Oprah is a merchandising phenomenon. And she knows what middle America wants, and she gives it to them, and they love her for it, and everything that she says or does takes another group of people into a higher financial status, and I'm all for that, or takes them into, I'm going to take care of you, or whatever it is that she needs. She's that kind of mind that is, has more humanity than Madonna, but they're both merchandising people. They take some talk show hosts. She's a talk show hostess. The whole world is aware that she's a talk show. But look what she's done.
She could run for president
I think
and win.
so.
And win.
Yeah.
Really, absolutely. There's no question about it.
I don't clap, don't applaud. Because that says a lot about, but she really is a phenomenon. And I'm very proud to be with her here, watching her do what she does. She does it brilliantly.
Carol Diahann Johnson.
She's a survivor. For the most part, I don't have any problems with her. She's okay. She falls down and she says, let's pick yourself up and start all over again. I think one of the things, if anything, that is most difficult for Carol Diahann Johnson is she's primarily a loner, always has been. And I find that's true of so many women in my profession when I read their history, that finding this path, honing this path, making this path last is very, very time consuming, and it takes up so much of your thought process that you really do spend a lot of time alone.
I would like to thank Marcia Smith, head of the SAG Foundation. I'd like to thank
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to thank Karen Cadle, my co-producer, brilliant producer.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'd like to thank TV Land for honoring Diahann tonight, and a huge, huge welcome to one of the most extraordinary talents, one of the most incredible human beings, and somebody who has gifted our lives in so many incredible ways. I love you and applaud Diahann Carroll,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen.
I thank you. I thank you so much. How lovely